good evening. Let's move on to this main story that is gripping America here this evening. The disappearance of the host of NBC's Today show, Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy. It's entered now into its second week. And tonight, the FBI has released new video footage of somebody that Director Kash Patel has described as an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door the morning of her disappearance. Savannah gave this update yesterday.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock, trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help.
And the President's Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt gave this update this evening.
I was once again with the President. He and I were both reviewing the newly released surveillance footage from FBI in the Savannah Guthrie case on just this heartbreaking situation with respect to her mother. The President encourages any American across the country with any knowledge of this suspect to please call the FBI, who continue to assist state and local authorities who are leading this investigation on the ground. And once again, I will reiterate that the prayers of this entire White House are with Savannah and her family at this time. And we hope this person is found soon and that her mother is brought home safely.
So let's talk now to former FBI agent Michael Harrigan. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on this case, which has gripped America. It's incredibly chilling. First of all, how did you feel when you saw this footage today? And do you know, Michael, why it's taken so long for this to be released?
Well, the official reason is it took a while to process the data here. Realistically, likely the release of this video is more a tactic here by law enforcement in cooperation with the family to get more information out to the public so that the public will have a better opportunity to weigh in here, provide information that could lead to the identification of this individual. This is typical in these cases. They get to a certain point in the case, and if they have this type of video, they want to get it out there and see if they can spur additional information coming in.
My understanding was that she had this Amazon Ring camera or Google camera, which was recording the footage even though she didn't have a paid subscription. And so the FBI forced Google to release this footage. And there are rumours that they actually had to be subpoenaed to release this footage to the family, but this is the first time that they've seen it. Now, Michael, what difference will it have made that this was initially a missing persons investigation? Because would that have contaminated the crime scene? That first initially thought maybe this is a little old lady who's got wandering off and disorientated in the middle of the night. How different could it have been in terms of the investigation?
Well, you know, a missing person investigation, and I've worked many of these in my past, is the first thing you look at is the victim. We call it victimology. You're looking at the victim to see what characteristics of the victim could have led to the missing person event happening. And with an elderly person, you're always looking at the potential of Alzheimer's, dementia, a person wandering away from the residence. But I think in this case, pretty early, the Sheriff's Department, when they responded to the residence, in pretty short order, they had found some pretty compelling evidence that there had been a crime there. Now, they called it a crime. They didn't say abduction at that point because they likely didn't know for sure. But there was blood evidence on the front steps, clearly to show that there was some foul play here and that there were circumstances likely beyond that to include maybe signs of forced entry or signs of a struggle inside the residence. All these things could have, I think, were there early in the case, and that the Sheriff's Department said, you know, clearly a crime had taken place there.
There's nothing more important than keeping you and your loved ones safe online. With so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. And with their Valentine's Day sale, this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GBNews viewers. It's the easiest way to stay safe online, protect your money, and save big for less than £2 a month. Click the link in the video's description or scan the QR code today.
And what do you think they'll be doing now, Michael, behind the scenes? There are a few items on this person that may be identifiable. The tracksuit top, the sneakers, the rucksack. What will the FBI be doing now? Because they're in control of this investigation now rather than local law enforcement. That's my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. What they do in these cases is they bring in experts from the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. That's your typical profiling units. And they have experts within that those units that can analyze, the written communication, the note that came in. They'll look at the video and they'll look at the behavior of this person. They'll look at the investigative information that's been collected to date and render an opinion. And help investigators focus down. One of the things they look at, when you look at that video, you see the person come up to the camera and they seem to look around a bit. And they look down and then they go to the alcove, to the exit there, and they're looking to find something to obscure the camera. Well, when you look at that, you say, well, this person really wasn't that prepared, were they? They should have known the camera was there, and likely if a person has planned out a kidnapping, they're going to come with the equipment to disable that camera quickly. Maybe tape over the camera or spray paint for that, or even knock the camera right off and disconnect it quickly. But this individual didn't do that. So those will be important signs that the behavioral analysts will look at to try to figure out what this person's background was, what their motivation in going to the house was. Because you still have to, you still have a lot of possibilities here of what the crux of the crime was here.
Yeah, that was such a strange thing to do, Michael. You saw the guy come up, see the camera. He's got a rucksack full of God knows what, a very heavy rucksack on his back. You'd think if he brought some sort of tape or something or a hammer just to smash it off. He didn't do that. He comes up to the camera. He's got at least one, if not a few pairs of gloves on, and obviously the balaclava as well. And then he walks back out, picks up some sort of foliage. He looks around to see if there's anything. He goes onto the path and he picks up sort of desert foliage, and then he kind of comes back and tries to obscure the camera with that, which is just the most amateurish and bizarre thing to do. Why would he be doing that as opposed to just kicking the camera off the wall, Michael? Any explanation?
Well, one explanation would be, I think he hit the nail on the head, amateurish. This could be an individual who potentially was hired to do a kidnapping by somebody who may not be well versed in this, because there really aren't professional kidnappers out there in the United States generally, right? You see some of them down in Mexico and other countries where they are professionals because they kidnap in series, multiple people, as a monetary gain issue. They look to obtain ransom, and it's a business, right? Here in the United States, you're not seeing that. So this individual could have been hired, or the other possibility is he was there as a maybe randomly picked a house to go into and was looking to burglarize it. But the fact that he didn't knock the camera off the wall immediately is an indication anyway that maybe he didn't want to disturb Miss Guthrie in the house. He didn't want to make a lot of noise. So as an option, he decided, well, let me just cover the camera and then go from there. There's a lot of oddities here.
Extraordinary.
But
very,
absolutely.
very. Well, it's still evolving, Michael. We really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much. Former FBI agent Michael Harrigan there. I'm delighted to say I can bring my panel in now. Democrat strategist Richard Goodstein and Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity, Tim Dosha, are with me here this evening. So we know it'll be a feisty one. And down the line, Paul Cox, who hopefully has got over his giggles that he got at the end of Patrick Christie's show earlier. But listen, fellas, this is a serious, a bizarre story, Tim. As the days go by, it is not getting any clearer. It is just getting more and more bizarre.
Yeah, we've got all the weight of the U.S. government at this point trying to find out what's going on here. We've got some leads, but nobody is really coming up with that big piece of evidence that just points to who and what's going on here. And so we are left with a lot of questions, Bev. And I think you're on to something with the Nest company and having to go to Google potentially to get that footage. They had to do it through the back end because, like you said, she wasn't paying for it. So, but we do know that it's still being recorded. So it kind of brings up a little bit of, we have a Nest that isn't hooked up. So is Google recording?
Apparently
always?
so.
It's
Apparently
a very interesting question.
Because the statement from Kash Patel today on Twitter, and I haven't got it to hand at the moment, but Kash put up a post on X that basically said, we have been working with private companies and other technological assistants in order to get this footage, Richard, which means the footage was there. You really do hope they didn't have to go to court to get this footage in a situation like this. There's some questions to be asked there, surely.
No doubt. Look, Tim says the full weight of the government is being brought on this. There would be a fuller weight if the FBI had gotten rid of some FBI agents and reassigned 3,000 to ICE and the Border Patrol. There'd be more FBI agents available to investigate this, but for those decisions. But one has to assume at this point they have as many as they need. Look, Savannah Guthrie is beloved, her mother even more so, and the fact that NBC is devoting the resources of the Today Show, which would have been covering the Olympics, and they put a lot of money into that, and they're kind of showing some great tenderness and kind of devotion to her to kind of tone that down a little bit. I think it says something good about their corporate decision.
Can I say something? Because Rich invoked me, and I just want to at least say, look, more people does not mean better results, Rich. I mean, this is one kidnapping instance. Thousands of people are kidnapped every single year, and this is a huge spotlight that we're focusing on right now. So, you only have so many resources, Rich. That's how it works. And just like the teachers union in school, more money doesn't mean better results. And so I just want to point that out to you.
Do without the FBI altogether.
Paul, it's one of these stories. A kidnapping has been going on since the medieval times. And yet there are some incredibly modern elements to this story, not least this CCTV footage, but also the fact that the ransom was requested in Bitcoin, untraceable Bitcoin. And I just wonder, it's a simple question, but how on earth must the family be feeling now as they go into the second week, knowing that their mum is unwell?
I think all of us can, and at the same time cannot understand how they're feeling. If this was any one of our parents or close family members, we'd all be feeling terribly anxious and very worried right now. It is fascinating watch it unfold as someone from the outside, in the sense of the technology involved, and where the pacemaker and the Google Nest and the Ring doorbell footage. He looked incredibly amateurish, as you pointed out. It strikes me as this is some sort of, and I mean, it's only my speculation, of course, sort of lone wolf, weirdo type character that's that's decided to do this. Nothing about the way that man moved around told me that this is what he does. This, to me, really did feel like he was just chancing his arm.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are also questions about the direction to which he approached the house, as in he looks like he might have come on foot rather than in a car, which is what they thought. But there are more questions. We've got another FBI expert in the next hour as well who's going to address some of those, because of course if he did come on foot, did somebody then pick him up? Looking at the timeline, did somebody come in a car about 15 minutes later because otherwise how could he have moved Nancy Guthrie, who was 84 years old and of limited mobility?